guys. Welcome back to a Stone and Clay podcast. Today's episode is a solo episode, episode 143. Um, as we always do, we're gonna hop into some Q&A, give some life updates, and just catch up a little bit. I actually really love doing these solo pods, so I'm excited. Some life updates. So I started doing. Surprisingly, I didn't think I was gonna do this, but I started doing cameos. And if you don't know what cameos are, it's this really cool app where basically you can book people to send you little videos. Um, it kind of is known for like you pay $100 and the celebrity will send you a video, so people get it for birthdays and bachelor parties, and they want to send their friend a pep talk. They you know, send The Rock $200 and he sends them a video. And a lot of like mega celebrities aren't on there, but a lot of sort of mid-tier celebrities make a lot of money on there. And I was like, I'm not a celebrity, right? Yet. I'm pre-famous over here, but I was like, I think this might be cool with my audience because I do one-on-one coaching, but not everybody wants like an hour, like a sort of a therapy session, right? Some people just want a little line of encouragement, a little motivation, right? Um, and so yeah, I started doing it, even though I had a little bit of imposter syndrome going there, but it's been awesome. It's been really cool. Most people have just been asking for a little bit of advice, a little bit of motivation. And I've loved it. So, the links are in my bios. If you're interested, hit me up for a cameo. I'll send you a little, and it's cool because you can send like really detailed explanations. Like somebody will be like, "Hey, I'm going through a really hard time. I'm struggling with this and this and this, and I just need a little bit of comfort. I need, what are your thoughts on this?" And so, yeah, you can send me a deeply specific request, and obviously I can deny it, but yeah, hit me up on Cameo. What else? I started, if you know me, and you might be new here, but I'm a big sports guy. Grew up playing basketball, baseball, football. Um, in high school, played tennis, basketball, did track, ran cross country when I was a kid, did karate for about 10 minutes. Um, right now, I play semi-professional spike ball, which is crazy. You might have to go Google that. I still play a lot of like men's league basketball. Play a decent amount of pickleball. Got into golfing about 2 years ago. And I play a decent amount of softball. So I play a lot of sports. And I joined a softball team this fall, or this fall season just started. And I really like softball, but I wasn't like a crazy baseball guy. I didn't grow up playing baseball like nonstop, you know. I quit in like 7th grade, I think. But I like baseball a lot. But I've just never been one that could just crank it over the fence, It just hasn't been my gift. But I think I've maybe played maybe 6 or 7 little softball seasons, 10, 15 games a season, whatever. And I've hit the ball over the fence twice, and it happened to be in the same game, like 10 years ago. So your boy's not going yard. I'm not hitting Yahtzee. It's not happening for me. And I don't swing for the fence. But I'm a pretty good, base hitter. I'll hit oppo. I run the base as well, whatever. But the other night, your boy went yard. Left fence, big, tall fence. I was like 5 for 5 for the game. It was awesome. Makes you kind of feel like a kid to hit a home run when you never hit home runs. It's like a little childhood dream come true. Because even in Little League, I hit a bunch in the park home runs. I hit triples. I hit doubles. I was fast, but I never hit it over the fence as a kid. And so it was pretty awesome. Another thing that's happening is your boy's traveling a lot. I got some things coming up. I'm going to record 2 podcasts in New York next week. Really excited about that. And then I'm doing a relationship workshop in a prison in Northern California in September. And then there's somebody I'm going to collaborate with in Toronto, which will be just in the coming months, might be even next year. There's some people I want to go do some stuff with in Austin. So yeah, I'm excited. I love traveling. If you know me, I've been to 49 states. And so I love just getting out there, going to new places, seeing new things. And so I'm really excited to go to New York next week. But let's get into it. Enough with the updates. You guys get it. I want to start with this quote. This quote I read the other day. It's by a beautiful writer named Henry Miller. And he said, he's talking about books, but he's also talking about everything in life that gives you hope and light and wisdom and knowledge. And, it's through the frame of books. But listen to this quote. He says, "I believe that today more than ever, a book should be sought after, even if it has only one great page in it. We must search for fragments, splinters, toenails, anything that has ore in it, anything that is capable of resuscitating the body and the soul." Yes! Think about that. Anything that can resuscitate your soul, whatever it is, any clip, any pinch, any splinter, any sliver, any toenail, he said. I love that. Anything that can get you back, anything that can resuscitate, bring you back to the status quo, can bring you back to light and to love. That's a beautiful thing, and we can't take that for granted. And I love the idea of saying, even if this book has one great page in it, it's worth reading, And that's a really good point, because sometimes, especially now, media has gotten so good that I have almost no tolerance for any media that isn't phenomenal, top to tail, whether it's a song, a show, a movie. I'm like, this needs to be perfection, because if not, I can go find something better, something more entertaining. But I like the idea of saying, no, if there's one good part in it, like really good part, it's worth it. That's good advice for me, that there's some genres I really struggle with, and I just sort of don't even give them a chance, because I'm like, yeah, I don't like that. I don't like country music. I don't like sci-fi, whatever. But I like that. Anything that has ore in it. That's really good. Okay. Hitting the Q&A. I will start by saying, every time I do this, I do a solo episode once every 7 to 10 episodes. Usually just falls on kind of a gap between guests or whatever. I don't worry too much whether it's the order, but I just like to do them every once in a while. But every time I do a Q&A, I get maybe 10 questions that basically say, would you date an African woman? Or, are you available for marriage? I'm from Africa. I don't know what vibe I'm putting out there, but the African women, they need it. And I have to respect them for it. They're beautiful women. I don't live in Africa. That's the main problem, is the continental divide. That's the main problem for me. I've talked about this before. I love all ethnicities when it comes to dating, romance, attraction. It's all great. They're beautiful women in every little corner of the earth. And I've been to a lot of corners. What I struggle with is I don't care if you're a foreigner. What I struggle with is somebody that doesn't speak English really well, just because I have communication at such a high premium that if the English isn't great, I have to change how I speak. They're constantly saying what, and that's not what I want. So that's usually the struggle with uh with other nationalities, honestly. But listen, much love to my African women. I'm not going to marry somebody just because they asked in a DM, even though it's really sweet. I appreciate it. It's charming stuff. First question: are you thinking of doing any tours worldwide? This is a good question. Going back to me traveling more, I would love to go on tours worldwide. And I think we'll get there eventually. I think right now, even though my audience is somewhat global, it's hard to know, like, if I went to Paris and was like, hey, I'm going to do a live event, it's hard to know how many people would show up. I don't know how many Parisians listen to my podcast, and I can maybe dip into the analytics and see how many people are listening in this country or this city, but that doesn't mean they'd be willing to go, and so once I'm sure of the marketability of an event, I'm down to do it, and even in the meantime, if the market isn't necessarily there yet, but somebody's willing to pay me to do it, I'll probably do it. When it comes to speaking events, live podcasts, whatever. And I am going to be doing in Utah. I meant to do it a while ago, but some logistics and planning shifted, and I'm going to be doing a live event in Utah, just sort of a meet and greet. Probably going to read a little bit from my upcoming novel, do a Q&A, just kind of meet a bunch of people that want to meet me. So obviously that'll probably be mostly Utah fans, but I would love if people flew out and came and saw me and met me. That'd be amazing. So yeah, hopefully that's on the horizon one day. Okay, now we're getting into it. We've got all trivialities aside. This person says, "Why am I still daydreaming about my ex?" Probably because you're still in love with them, or they were just such a big part of your life and you haven't fully moved on, and that's okay. Like, I think people think so black and white, but almost everything you can think of, whether it's an action or a philosophy or a principle or a way of living, whatever, almost everything you can think of is a spectrum, And so when you say, I'm daydreaming about my ex, well, daydreaming is a bit of a spectrum. Like, are they just popping up in your head every once in a while? Or are you like spending lots of time thinking about them? Are you thinking about them when you're trying to go to sleep? Are you actively like poking around their social media? Are you like fantasizing about some alternative universe where you end up together? Listen, we've all done it. But I would just say, ask yourself these questions and then say, okay, if this is hurting me, which probably is, how can I scale back a little bit? How can I think about them a little bit less? And I think for a long time, if an ex is somebody that you still really care about and you were really hurt when it ended and part of you wishes you were still together, whatever the case may be, I think for a long time they're going to re-enter your brain. And I think that's okay. And I think that's really normal. So I don't think the second they pop into your brain, you need to kick them out. But I think if you let that thought marinate and grow, is it causing you pain? Because I have old exes that pop into my brain sometimes, but it's been so long, there's zero pain there anymore. And it has just become good memories. And I think if you're healing properly, I think you can get to that point with any ex. But, for the first few months, maybe even first few years, it can be really hard to not daydream about your ex. I still do it sometimes, and weird things will trigger it. Sometimes the other day I saw this girl just out and about that kind of looked like her, kind of had her swag, kind of had her style of clothes, and she was far enough away that it was just probably similar body type, similar hair color, and that was about it. My imagination did the rest, right? But it kind of brought me back to that place. And for myself, it's been long enough that doesn't immediately elicit a lot of pain, but a month after a breakup, that would have put me in the poorhouse. That would have made me really probably think about her the rest of the night. So give yourself some grace. That is usually my advice in most instances when people are asking for help when it comes to heartbreak and getting over someone in grief. It's like, you got to give yourself some grace. You got to understand that what you're going through is what most people are going through. You're in incredible pain because you lost somebody you cared about so deeply, and it is ripping your heart out, and you're trying to just live your life. You're trying to go to work, and a coworker's like, "Hey, how's that thing you're working on?" And you're like, "Dude, I don't care. I'm dead inside." So it'll be done when it gets done, but I don't really care because my heart is shattered. It's broken. It's irrevocably lost. So, yeah, I get it. Give yourself some grace. What's your favorite thing about yourself? This is a question I actually love asking people, and I think I've answered this question before, but it's a question worth repeating and worth asking yourself again and again from time to time, I think, because we're so quick to sort of deflect compliments and deflect attention about us. But I think it's important to look inward and say, what do I love the most about myself? And for me, like I said, I talked about this before, but I think I love my affability, my ease with human beings, my love for mankind, my love for love, my ability to be with people and enjoy it really deeply. And maybe something I love about myself more than anything is my ultimate capacity for joy, right? And this is a double-edged sword because my capacity for joy being great means my capacity for sadness is also great. And sometimes that's something I don't love about myself, but that's just the bad voices talking, and I don't believe them. So they can get bent for all I care. Because the sadness is part of it, and it's beautiful too. And sometimes it hurts, but it's worth it because it's part of it. You don't get tremendous happiness without some pretty sizable sadness, and that's okay. I'm here for it, So, yeah, maybe the thing I love the most about myself is my extravagantly robust capacity for joy. Whew. How is your walk with God going? It's going well. I would say this is another question always worth asking yourself because it ebbs and flows, and sometimes the ebbs are pretty pretty ebby, you know? And right now, I think I feel so within my purpose in life that it's hard to feel distanced from God. Even though there are things that I want more than anything. You think I don't want to leave this podcast and go home to children that love me and say, "Hey, Dad," and a wife that is just so excited to see me and asks about the pod and says, "Oh, you haven't worn that shirt in a while. I love that shirt." And says, "What do you want to do for lunch?" You think I don't want that more than anything? I do. But that doesn't estrange me from my God in any way, you know? And I think sometimes we think, well, God's the one that's going to give me those things. So if I don't have those things, I'm upset, or there's resentment, or there's distance between us. But I'm like, no, I don't think that's how it works. I understand that thought and that temptation, but I don't really subscribe to it. I'm close to God, and I actually made a reel about this the other day, but the other day, it's funny, a bunch of people like checked in on me, and I'm doing great. I'm doing awesome. But I was having a moment. I was trying to go to sleep, and I can't even remember. I probably already did my rote nightly prayer, which I tried to not be very rote, but sometimes it's just sort of a handful of things I'm grateful for, handful of things I'm hopeful for, wishing for, need, whatever, maybe asking for blessings for friends or family, whatever. Pretty routine, I guess, is a better word. But I think I already did that, but then I couldn't sleep. And I wasn't feeling a specific emotion of hopelessness or desperation, but I know that's an emotion that I feel at times. And it's not so overwhelming that I'm fearful that it will overtake me, but it's still disconcerting, right? It's still a frightening emotion because I know where that can lead, right? And I'm in a period of my life, a nice little valley where I feel a lot of peace and I feel a lot of hope. And I'm not fully confident how I got here. But sometimes the fear when you're in these periods of peace is that they'll leave, and so right now I don't have any inclination to give up in any capacity. But for whatever reason, my prayer that night was, God, don't let me give up on me. I know you're not going to give up on me. Don't let me do it. I don't want to be the one to do it. And that's not just in love. That's not just in my career, in podcasting, in writing books, in being a good friend, being involved in my sister's lives. It's in everything. I don't want to give up on anything important, right? I might give up on a series that is kind of petering out, too many filler episodes. But I don't want to give up on the important things, the things I really care about. And I know at some point down the road, there'll be a temptation to do that, and I don't want to do that. And so I just sort of preemptively prayed for that. And it's funny, I don't think I usually do sort of preemptive prayers, right? It's like me praying that I'll have a good wedding day. It's like, bro, you need to get a girlfriend first, But when I have a thought or a feeling, I try to act on it. And so, yeah, it was a really special prayer, and it just felt really good, really, really well received. So yeah, my walk with God is great. If we're walking side by side, if anything, it's me that is like sometimes, I'm gonna go on the other side of the street because there's some shade over here. It's like God's walking in the sun. I'm trying to get some shade. And he's like, all right, like I told you can walk hand in hand with me. I told you can walk right by me and we can be close. But it's your prerogative to walk across the street if you think it's better over here. It's like, I don't think it's better over there, but sometimes I can't handle the heat, you know? I need some shade. I need some spiritual shade. Okay, this is maybe semi-related. How to forgive, somebody asked. I say it's related just because forgiveness to me is such a divine thing, such a godly verb. But listen, you don't need it. You don't need to think that way to have it, right? It's just how I view it. But forgiveness is a very interesting thing. And I've had a lot of people ask me about forgiveness and ask, like, how can I forgive somebody that did this or this or this to me? It doesn't really matter what somebody did, how heinous the crime was, how heinous the misconduct was. When somebody hurt you, forgiving them is essentially giving yourself permission to move on, like you can't really control whether they are actually asking forgiveness. You can't control whether they are changing, whether they are, feeling true compunction. You have no control over that. What you can control is if you decide to hold on to it still. And so for me, I will forgive anybody for anything, always. But that doesn't mean I still like them. Doesn't mean I want to spend time with them anymore. Doesn't mean I trust them anymore. So yeah, sometimes I have to sort of rewrite some boundaries. I got to be Lewis and Clark over here. But that doesn't mean I'm going to hold on to anger and resentment. And sometimes the anger and resentment, it lingers for a bit, even though you're trying to forgive them. But to me, that's just a little bit of time. If the wound is still fresh, it's going to hurt for a little bit. But not forgiving somebody is basically saying, okay, I'm going to let you continue to drag me down. Go ahead, drag me. Where would you like to go? I'm open to any options because I'm not going to forgive you. So where should we go? Where should we be dragged? So I don't want to be dragged. So I'll forgive you. And even if I'm still bugged, even if I'm still hurt, I don't need to be fully healed to forgive somebody, And I think that's the misnomer at times. Do you feel like connections are rare now? I don't. I think sometimes we get caught up in the modern day and we think, man, life is so dictated by social media and ChatGPT and ease and luxury and leisure. And where's the connectivity? Where's the humanness? Where's the love? Where's the ease of connection, But I don't feel that way. I feel like my connections now are just as rich as ever and are just as meaningful. They're just as easy. I would argue they're even easier because with social media, I have an ability to meet more people and connect with more people. And yeah, some of them are going to be superficial, but that doesn't mean overall connections are harder to have or overall connections are more superficial. So I think if that's your narrative, you just need to meet new people. Like you need to make new connections, but maybe I just got some awesome rose-colored glasses. I don't know where I got them, but if I got them, great. I'll keep adjusting the prescription and I'll keep wearing them. How have you handled regret in dating and relationships? Regret's an interesting emotion that I don't feel a lot of utility in it. Like it's something that's there at times, but yeah, I don't feel a lot of utility in feeling regret. I think maybe the only point is sort of preemptive regret. Like, I'm not going to do this thing because I know if I do it, I'll feel regret later. That's when maybe there's some utility. But after something's already happened, feeling regret, it's just not helpful, right? What is it doing for you besides maybe helping you not make that mistake again? But I think that's really a small percentage of what it's doing. So for me, when I look back at old relationships, I know that was a different version of me. I was younger, I was less experienced. And every person you date is so different that even if you've dated a ton, this person, it's a brand new experience. And so there's going to be a learning curve, And so this comes back to what I've said about other things. I'm willing to give myself maximum grace, because for the most part, in all my relationships, I just did the best I could, I was maybe an idiot. I was maybe naive. I was maybe even hurtful, but I wouldn't do that again if I was with that person again. It's what happened. It's a sunk cost. There's nothing I can do about it, It's funny. I was talking to a client yesterday, and he was talking about how he's going through a breakup and he's carrying so much shame because of how it ended, and some things that he did wrong. And he even said, he's like, I don't, I loved her and I cared about her and I never did anything to try and hurt her, but, I mishandled a few things. And maybe that's the reason she left. And maybe if I was a better boyfriend, she wouldn't have left, And I was like, yeah, dude, I get that. But the reason, you reached out to me and the reason it's so hard for you to move on is because you have sadness compounded with shame. And it's like, okay, good luck, man. Good luck. You've got to find a way to rid yourself of the shame and be like, you know what? Yeah, I could have acted different when she did this and I overreacted, or when I was insecure and brought this up, or when I took this part of her for granted, I could have been better. But I think the way you want to reroute is say, okay, well, now I will be better. I will be better in my next relationship. And I'm sure as hell not going to lose somebody this amazing twice, although I've lost multiple amazing women. So, but here's the thing. I don't have any regrets because I feel like I left it all on the table. And when I look back, sure, now that I have hindsight, I could have done things different because now I know how they reacted. Now I know what they didn't like or what didn't work for them. And I know what guys they dated after me. So maybe I could have acted more like them, right? But it's like, no, I don't want to try and be somebody else. I was just doing the best I could. And I feel like when you're dating, a lot of what you have to do is follow your gut. And that's what I did. I followed my gut. And sometimes my gut led me astray. But to me, that's telling me, I guess that's not the person meant for me, And this really incredible concept that me and some friends talked about the other day was, what if I've actually done nothing wrong in any of my relationships. And the only reason I'm not married at this stage is because I haven't met my person yet. And it has nothing to do with a past full of foibles. It has nothing to do with my weaknesses and my shortcomings and things I could have done different. And it's simply the sheer fact that I have not met my wife. She hasn't been around. She's been over there, and I've been over here. And I haven't met her yet. The timing hasn't been there yet. Is that a possibility, at least? I think so. And I feel like that narrative is way more helpful than saying, yeah, I'm not married because I did this and I messed this up and I couldn't do this, you know? And also I realize, you know, if I get married tomorrow, I'll for sure be a better husband than had I gotten married 10 years ago, because I've had 10 years to grow and learn and become a better me. But I ain't got no regrets, man. I got no regrets. If I had a do-over, would I do things different? Sure. But everyone would, you know, because now you have some hindsight. But if my brain got wiped clean and I had a do-over, I'd probably do it the same, you know? All right, this is a complex one. How do you positively handle seeing exes move on? You don't. No, this is very similar to how do you move on from somebody, right? It takes some time. Time is the grand healer. It's the big medicine. There's a lot of other little things you need to do, but time is the big component. And, you know, positively handling seeing your ex move on, my opinion there is try to see as little of your ex as possible. Don't see them move on. You know, you might know that they've moved on. Maybe they're even sort of in your friend circle, or they're near to you enough that you can't help but know, right? But for me, like, I don't go and check up on my ex. I could really easily. I know her Instagram. I'm not blocked. I still follow her, actually, but I got her muted because I don't want to see that stuff. It doesn't help me. It just makes me sad. Even freaking 2 years later, it makes me sad. And, you know, it's funny. One of these questions, I wasn't even going to answer this. One of the questions was, are you over your ex? And it's like, yeah, pretty much, you know, it's been freaking 2 years. But if I go and like look at her Instagram and see her with some new guy, is it going to make me feel joyous? No, you know? And listen, maybe one day I'll get there, but it's not today. So I'm not going to go poking around. And does that mean I'm not over her? I don't know. It means I'm mostly over her, probably. It means I'm, I've talked about this before. I've joked that I'm like 89% over her, or I'm 92 to 94% moved on. You know, I'm 96% healed, darn it. But ultimately, all my exes, I want them to be happy. And like I said, I have some that it's been long enough that I can go look at their Instagram and be like, wow, they figured it out. They're happy. They found what they wanted. And guess what? What they wanted wasn't me. And that's okay. And in some cases, I didn't want them, you know. But I would just put this in the same category as, how do you positively handle moving on? It's hard, you know, and it takes time. Somebody asked me the other day, what are the, like, if there's like 4 or 5 things you need to move on, what are they? And I was like, well, time is number one, by a landslide. And the other things, there's a lot of other little things, and they're different for everybody, you know. You might need a little healing. You might need to get rid of some resentment, some bitterness, some anger. You might need to stop looking at their Instagram. You know, you might need to correct some behaviors that are sort of crippling your progress. Another big one, I think, is stop obsessing over needing some closure, because I'm not convinced closure will actually make you any less sad. You know, you might think that, oh, this is the one puzzle piece that can bring me some peace, that can make me feel okay about this breakup, because why did it happen? How could they leave after what we had, you know? Like the week before we broke up, we're like laughing hysterically and holding each other and looking into each other's eyes, and I'm looking in and I'm seeing the brown of her eyes, and I'm seeing, you know, that specific shade of brown that is really comforting to me for some reason, because she feels so at home. And then a week later, you know, she says she doesn't want to be with me anymore. Like, that's going to flip your universe upside down. How do you move on? You do it with time, you know, but you can't help but think, why? How could this happen? We were so good, and then this happened, you know. So we get obsessed with needing answers and needing closure. And I think none of those answers will change the facts, right? They won't change the fact that that person has rejected you, that the relationship is over, that they are moving on without you. Like, all those things haven't changed. And so I think closure might help you 1%. That's my belief. And I still, like, it's funny, I still wish I had some more closure with my ex, even though I got plenty. You know, we had quite the state of union when we broke up, but I still wanted more, because there's always things left unsaid. And there's always, I won't say half truths, but because that makes it sound a little mendacious, but, you know, not everybody tells you every precise exact reason why they want to break up, because they're usually really hurtful, you know, and ultimately unnecessary. So I would say a great component of moving on is not overly obsessing with the need for closure. Let's see. How to remain hopeful in the absence of romantic love. This person says they've been single for 5 years now. I think hope is pretty elusive when there's no action, you know? Even if it's really minimal action and really minimal results, I think there needs to be some action, you know? So for me, hopelessness is an emotion that it kind of comes in like the wind. You know, it's unexpected. You can't see it. Sometimes it's there for a while. Sometimes it vanishes pretty quick. Sometimes it's a warm breeze. Sometimes it is just blustering for hours. But for me, it doesn't really stick around long term, because I act on the things that maybe feel hopeless, right? If dating feels hopeless, you got to date. You got to try. You got to do something, you know? And if you're like, well, I haven't been on a date in 5 years. Okay, that's fine. Ask yourself, why is that? Is that fully because I'm completely undateable, unlikable, nobody will ask me out, whatever? Or is it because I've become somewhat antisocial, reclusive, hermetic. I have completely gone inward and have not availed myself to social opportunities and dating opportunities. Have I become more irritable? Have I become more pretentious? Have I become more difficult to deal with, difficult to approach? Just, you have to ask yourself these questions and then work backwards and say, okay, if I haven't been on a date in 5 years, it's obviously for a reason. And those reasons are probably complex, but there's certainly some things that I can sit with and improve on, And so, like I said, I think if that's your attitude and you're like, okay, well, it might not be easy and I might not start getting dates tomorrow, but I guess I'm going to try to be a little bit more social. I'm going to try to take care of myself a little bit. Maybe you've been so lost in an addiction, the dating is just taking a back seat because you're going to mess it up. You're not a great person to date right now. And so you self-sabotage. You sabotage before it even happens. You preemptively sabotage. You sit at home and bemoan the fact that you're alone. That's okay. That's okay. We are all incredibly broken humans that do strange, delusional things. That's okay. Just, let's reroute. Let's find a solution and let's work. And it might take a while, and you might have to start with really, really, really small steps. But, if whatever state you're in feels hopeless, it's going to require some action, And so, even in my case, and I know the case of many others, you can feel an absence of hope because you have been dating a lot and have just been experiencing failure and rejection and broken love and lost love, and just things haven't been working out. And my advice is the same. You have to continue to act. What alternative do you have? Give up? And maybe look at it. Why, if my last 4 relationships have ended in me being rejected, why? Is that just bad luck, or am I dating the wrong kinds of women? Am I rushing into things? Am I love bombing? What am I doing? Is there a common denominator in this, But yeah, hope requires some action. What brought you to the place of being able to express with such openness about your journey? What brought you to that place? This is a question I get asked a lot in different forms. People ask, how am I so vulnerable? How am I so okay with being so open online and all these things? And I think it's a combination of life experience and life exposure and some basic muscle memory. You do anything a lot, you get used to it and it becomes easier. But I've always felt comfort in sharing hard things with people because it's always brought them closer to me. I think the fear is that sharing something really heavy or really dark or really personal, really close to you with somebody, the fear is that will distance that person from you. And listen, it can, but that's the wrong person. That's not the kind of person you want to be around. And I've just found that most people that I share with, it's brought them closer to me. So I'm like, I want to be close with people, so I'm going to share, and there'll always be people that don't like you or don't like your approach or don't want to be close with you. And that's okay. And in my case, the more eyes that are on you, the more possibilities there are for somebody to make fun of you or for somebody to not like you. And, I've had people message me saying, I don't like this or what you said about this, so I'm done following you or I'm whatever. And I'm like, okay, I can't please everyone. I can't be close with everyone, but what I love about sharing is it enables people to connect with you. When you have walls up and aren't sharing anything, it's really hard to be close to you. It's really hard to feel a connection. And so, to me, I think that openness and that vulnerability helps in all scenarios. It helps in business, it helps in familial relationships, it helps in romantic relationships, it helps in your ability to communicate with your boss, in your ability to communicate with a coach. Even like something as silly as the guys on my softball team, it's like I feel an openness to be like, hey guys, I'm going through this today, so sorry, that's why I'm out to lunch and I've made some errors, whatever. Like, I know that they've been through stuff too, and they might not be the kind of guys that are going to share like me, but they'll understand because they've been through stuff. We're all human, So that's how I view it. I view it as a tool to get closer to people, which is beautiful. This question is in French, so I don't know what it means. This person asks for tips on dealing with anxiety in the early dating stage. This is so connected with like attachment styles sometimes, but and I will say I'm grateful to not be someone that struggles much with anxiety. I think in the early stages, when you've been on a few dates, you're in the talking stage, I think you have to have pretty low expectations. You can be really excited and really optimistic, but still have fairly low expectations. And I say that because in the early stages, you just have no idea what they're thinking and what they're going through and what their approach to dating is and what kind of baggage they're carrying along. There's just so many unknowns, and we just rack our brains sometimes wondering why aren't they texting back, or why does it feel like they had a different experience than me, or why are they so reticent to commit? Why, we absolutely rack our brains. And in my experience, the best relationships, they just kind of work out, and all that anxiety isn't super necessary because it'll either work out or it won't. And I guess we're often so afraid that it won't, that the anxiety arises, but you don't need to be, because with the right person, it will work out. But yeah, if you're struggling with, overthinking your dates and overthinking, are they going to ask me out again? Should I text them? Should I do this? Should I do this? Should I wear this? I would say just try to take the pressure off. And when you go on a date, try to just enjoy the date. Try to enjoy the person and get to know them. And don't think so much about strategy, about your next move. Just try to enjoy the night. I've been on lots of dates that I really had no desire to take them on a second date, but I really enjoyed the night and had zero anxiety because I was just like, well, we're here. I'm going to enjoy dinner. I'm going to try to get to know them. I'm going to try to connect a little bit. I'm not, if I'm not interested, I'm not going to like try to deeply, deeply connect, because then it can be misleading. But yeah, take the pressure off and just enjoy the person you're with and try to get to know them. And try to eliminate some expectations of how fast should this go? How slow should we be moving? How much should they be sharing? Like in the early stages, nobody really owes you anything, just get to know them and see if they want to get to know you back, you know? Um, are you single? Asked about 27 times. This is an interesting question. Do you ever find it emotionally taxing to work with stories of heartbreak or inspiring? Not especially. It's definitely emotionally strenuous. There's an emotional sweat being broke, but I don't know. I think I, in a way, am sort of built for this because it never tends to exhaust me. It never tends to overwhelm me. It never tends to make me feel unbalanced. And I know that's not the case for a lot of people. I think partly I'm a deeply extroverted person, so talking to people all day is great for me. I love it, and especially if I feel like I'm helping people or encouraging people. So there's definitely times where, where I'm on a coaching call and somebody's telling me about a breakup or some heartbreak they're going through, and it feels really similar to something I've experienced. And I wouldn't even say the word is triggering. I would just say there's some deep, borderline painful empathy there. And I guess that just doesn't hurt me. It makes me happy. It makes me happy that I can feel that deeply and possibly help that person. And I guess I don't mind thinking that much about painful things I've been through because I know I've come out the other side. I know I've made it. I know I'm okay. And so going back there, it's not traumatizing. It's, sometimes it's a little sad and it's a little like, ooh, a little gut punch. But I think the more I do it, the more I realize like, oh, these gut punches, they're subtle reminders that I'm a human being and that there's a lot of light in me and that my heart is really, really powerful and feels and is large. It's a great reminder. So I'm not going to be bugged at that reminder. I'm not going to sit and fester in it and make it a pity party. Although I've held pity parties and I feel like I'm a decent host. Yeah, I think I'm uniquely prepared to do this kind of work. And so I'm probably going to do it forever. Some of these questions I have to read out loud, even though they're broken English and I don't really understand what they're saying. They're just too funny. What do you think when a woman declare herself to a man? I don't know what that means. I would love if a woman declared herself to me and was like, I am a woman. Here I am. That'd be great. That'd be great. I'm all for it. Women, feel free to declare yourself. I love a good declaration. What is on your current playlist? I was talking to somebody about this last night. I'm such a playlist guy. Like, and I think I've shared like my Spotify link on Instagram before, but happy to do it again. But I think I have like 72 playlists. I just love hearing a song and being like, oh, this goes on this playlist. I have a playlist called College semicolon Heartbreak. It's like that's a very specific period of life, very specific emotion. And a lot of times I'll hear a song and I'm like, oh, that's from, as a junior in college, and freaking Ashley was breaking my heart for no good reason. And I was listening to this emo, sad song and made me feel better. So let's throw it on the playlist. Right now, I have a new playlist I made a couple months ago that has maybe 25 songs on it. I've just been listening to it a lot. There's a little Noah Khan on there. There's a little Porter Robinson. There's a little, I guess I could just pull it up, guys. We're right here, There's some MGK. I'm actually a really big MGK fan. There's some Fleetwood Mac. There's some Mike Posner. There's a couple throwback Coldplays on there. Some Quinn 92. There's this song called In Another Life by G Flip. Never heard of G Flip before. Absolutely obsessed with this song. I've been listening to it way too much. Some Lord. Yeah, some really good stuff. There's some bands on here that I don't even really know. They just have one song I like, but some Matt Kearney, some Yoke Lore. Anyways, I love music with all my heart. It's a really important part of my life. Okay, guys, there was literally like over 100 questions that people sent in. So this could be like a 9-hour episode, but we're just going to do maybe a handful more. I like this question. I've talked about joy a lot, but the question is, what brings you daily joy? And the other day, again, I was having a morning prayer, and I'm not great at morning prayer because I'm not great at mornings, right? I'm not a morning person. I feel like I'm in the fog of war. Like my eyes hurt. I'm not happy to be there. And so I try to get on my knees in the morning and pray, but they're often like not incoherent. They're just fairly worthless because my brain's not really on yet, Sometimes I wait and I'll say a little prayer in the shower or on the, in my car. But the other day I woke up and I had this thought and I was like, Lord, help me to feel the bits of joy today, the little crumbs of joy, the little tiny parcels of joy. I want to feel them. And you could call it a coincidence. You could call it cosmic luck. You could call it whatever. You could call it divine providence. But I swear to you, that day was incredibly joyful. And all these little things happened that were really, really special to me. It was the day I hit my home run. But I had lots of little moments where, I saw a friend or someone texted me. I got a really exciting email about some opportunity. There were little bits of joy all scattered across my day, and I just felt every one of them in a big way. I don't think, if I zoomed out, I don't know that the day was anything miraculous, anything out of the ordinary. But man, I felt those bits of joy. And so to me, the question, what brings you daily joy? My goal is for everything to bring me joy. And that doesn't always work, you know? Sometimes you're like, yeah, I want to feel joy in my ride to work. So let me throw on a good playlist. Let me get in a good mood. Let me bring a snack, whatever. I'll have joy on my ride. But then somebody texts you and tells you something discouraging, and you're like, well, my ride's ruined. There's no more joy. And that's understandable. You know, some moments of joy get ruined. They get rained on. But I just try to fill it in everything. If I'm having a bowl of cereal, I try to be like, man, where's the joy in this cereal? You know? And maybe that sounds trite, but as someone that can struggle with sadness and loneliness, I'm a seeker of joy. I got to find it wherever I can. And I don't care how small it is. I don't care how seemingly insignificant that little dust mite of joy is. I'm going to seek it out. And I'm going to try to hold on to it until it evanesces. And then I'll go find another bit. And so that's my advice. It's like, what brings you daily joy? I could list off 28 things. And do I do them every single day? Probably not. But I know the things that bring me joy. And there's so many of them that I know joy is never too far away. And that's what's been really helpful for me. You know, like, I know life is going to be really hard, really forever. You know, there's going to be tremendous happiness and great events and monumental moments and milestones and achievements. And, you know, life's going to be glorious, but I also know life is going to be full of pain and death and loss. And so knowing that, I'm just like, okay, in between all of those, even simultaneously, where's the joy, man? I got to find it. I got to have it, you know? And so I'll take it. I'll take it at any avenue, wherever it might be, I'll take it. There's a line by The Killers where he says, be an advocate of joy. And I love that. I love that line. Be an advocate of joy. Because sometimes we don't seek it. Sometimes we don't advocate for it. We have too much pessimism. We have too much, maybe, idealism in our heart. But be an advocate of joy. That's my advice. When are you coming to Australia? It's hard to know. Probably need some plane tickets. This is a great question. Sent you an message. A-N message. Okay. It's not a great question, but that's okay. What catches your attention in someone? Yeah, I think something that really catches my eye is when somebody can really easily find joy in small things. That's something I notice when somebody gets their food at a restaurant and I can just tell they're tickled. They're excited to try it. That's really attractive to me. When somebody, just before this podcast, I'm sitting with my producer. He wanted to show me this new song that was just released by a band we love. And I just see him just weeping because he feels so much joy and so much hope in this song. That's a super attractive quality. I'm not attracted to him physically because, he's so male, but when people are touched easily, when people are moved easily, there's just some joie de vivre in them. They feel life. They feel goodness. They feel pain. They cry. They share. They're emotionally awake. those are things that excite me. Those are things that stand out to me, that catch my eye. Obviously, beauty is something that catches anyone's eye quickly, but beauty without any emotional depth is ultimately a vapid pursuit. And, it might even be a temptation to pursue it for a little while, but it just doesn't have the legs to keep me interested very long. This is a great question. How does one go on a date with you genuinely? Usually one goes on a date with me because I asked them, and then I usually pick them up or I meet them somewhere, Okay, I'm gonna read a few more, then we'll wrap this up. Ooh, this one's good, darn it. And if you're new to my way of speaking, I love saying darn it when something is good. I love seeing somebody really beautiful and being like, oh man, she is gorgeous, darn it. That's how I like to do it. It's funny to me. Almost like you're frustrated that something is so good. Anyway, how do you know you're truly ready for love and not just tired of waiting? I think you can be ready for love and tired of waiting. I think maybe that's the wrong question. I think the right question is, how do I discern whether this love is authentic, whether this love is real, or whether I'm acting out of some desperation, or some neediness, or some tiredness. If you're tired of waiting, maybe you're with somebody out of sheer tiredness, and that's not great, right? So the question is this love that I have for someone, is it real? Does it have depth? Is it authentic? And if the answer is no, maybe you're trying to convince yourself to be in love because you'd rather that than be alone. Not a great approach to love, in my opinion. Not a great indicator of future success in a relationship. But I think the two can coexist. I think you can be really tired of waiting, really exhausted, and still be ready to love, still be able to fall in love with the right person. And that will, that'll get rid of the tiredness, and it'll feel great and it'll feel wonderful, but that won't be the only reason, Okay. This person says, and I'm going to push back a little bit on this one. I don't know why. This isn't something I'm overly passionate about, but this person says, if being single was a season, what would you call it and why? And I'm pushing back because I don't know why I don't love the term season. Like this is my single season, or this is a season of loneliness, right? Because to me, it almost makes it sound like it's inevitable. Like a season lasts a specific amount of time, right? It's not always the same, but like summer is 3 months, You could argue like, okay, summer starts when school gets out, or summer starts officially on June 21st. There's slightly different parameters, but summer's 3 months, right? A basketball season is this amount of time. Maybe it's a little extended for playoffs, maybe if we're counting preseason too, but ultimately it's a specific period of time. And so I don't like saying I'm in a season of singleness because I don't know that it's predetermined. I think I'm single right now, but I could be not single tomorrow. Probably won't happen that quick, but I could meet my person tomorrow. I could meet him today. And so, if that word works for you, great. I'm not saying it's a harmful word to use, but I just don't like it. So the question being, if being single was a season, what would you call it and why? I guess I would more prefer the phrase, a chapter, but this is the chapter that you're writing. So you get to dictate when the chapter ends, and so maybe I call this chapter of singleness, I would call it everything, because it's been a long period of my life. It's been a long season, whatever, and it's encapsulated everything. It's brought me tremendous amounts of pain and tremendous amounts of joy, and I've learned so much and I've lost so much. And I've also done so many other things in my life that have nothing to do with if I have a partner or not, that have coincided with that season, with that chapter. So I'd call it everything, and guess what? The next chapter of my life that includes love, a partner, a fiance, a wife, children, grandchildren, etc. That next chapter is going to be called Everything Continued, or Everything Part 2. It's everything. And so I don't like to get overly fixated on, well, this is the season I'm in. It's like, no, this is the chapter that I'm currently writing. I'm trying to write faster. I'm trying to finish this chapter, and God's a co-author, so maybe we're on the last page. The problem, I think we are on the last page. The problem is I don't know how many words are on this page. I'm not positive what font we're using and how small the print is. I'm not positive. So I do feel like we're on the last page of this chapter, but we could be in the first paragraph, or we could be we could be in the final sentence. We could be on the home stretch. But I don't know. It's a really good question, even though I pretended like I didn't like it. Okay, I'm going to give a nice and vague answer to this one, but this person says, "Hey, I'm a new follower. How can I get caught up on your relationship history?" You can't. You can go back and listen to a lot of podcasts, and I talk about a lot of relationships and things I've been through, but it's not especially linear. I've actually had, if you want to be a detective, I've actually had 2 girls on the podcast that I've dated pretty seriously. Neither of which was I dating seriously at the time. One was kind of right before, and one was sort of, we were a little bit on and off, and we did when we were kind of off, and it kind of got us back on again. But yeah, you can do your research if you want, but I'm a very open person about feelings and what I'm going through, but when it comes to people I've dated, I don't want to share all their information and share photographs or names or things like that, obviously. And so my dating history is long and nuanced and epic in certain respects, but ultimately pretty personal. If you were to ask a more specific question, I might be happy to answer, but it's like, what is your, you want to get caught up on my relationship history? Just know that I've had a lot of them, and some have lasted a long time, and some have lasted a short time, and everything in between. And the beauty in that is when you date a lot, you get to know people really well. You get to understand the opposite sex, but you also get to understand yourself a lot because you've hundreds and hundreds of times you've sat with somebody and tried to get to know them and tried to get them to like you and tried to ask yourself, do I like them? And these are important questions. And so there are definitely pros and cons to having dated a lot, but I'm just going to focus on the pros because, yeah, nothing I can do about the cons. Okay, let's maybe do one more. Okay, this one's going to break my heart a little bit. But that's okay. Like I said, I can handle it. This person says, I've been single and alone for almost 13 years. I feel worthless. How do I get a handle on it? This is such a hard question because I don't know what specifically they're going through, but I can relate with a feeling of worthlessness, a feeling of really low self-worth, right? And like I've said before, I don't believe there's actual validity in that statement that I'm worthless. I feel like I have tremendous worth. But when you're feeling bad about yourself and when you're feeling broken and dejected, you feel worthless. You feel like your value is low, and you can't help that. And if you've been alone for a really, really long time, those feelings can compound year after year. And the story you tell yourself can get more and more detailed, and it can get longer and longer, and the story can become, I'm worthless and irredeemable. And if I could sit with this person that really feels like, because I've been alone for the last 13 years, I'm worthless, I would hug them and I would say, you're not worthless. I know that because you're a human. I know that because I can tell how big your heart is and how much you want this. And that alone, I don't need any more information. And I know you're absolutely full of worth and absolutely a beautiful human. And so the answer here is not easy. The answer here is you've got to find a way to regain that self-worth and to love yourself again. Because it's really hard to go out there in the world and seek love if you don't have any for yourself, And so, just like any Herculean task, you have to start with a really small step and maybe just ask yourself, okay, I'm having trouble finding any worth in myself. I'm having trouble loving anything about myself because I've had such a negative narrative for so long. Let me start small. What is something I love about myself? What is something that I know brings worth? Is it something so small that it's like, I don't know, I love my sister. I love her a lot. She means the world to me. I always think about her. When I see her, I light up. Whew, that's worth a lot. That's worth a ton. And maybe you're like, yeah, but So what? Everyone loves their siblings, but I suck at this and I'm bad at this and I've failed at this. Okay, let's start small. Okay, so you love your sister. What else? You know? Well, maybe I'm good at drawing. Okay, there's another thing. Start small and ask yourself, what are some things I love about myself? And you can also get real and say, maybe my self-worth is so low because I have been irresponsible. I have been neglectful. There's some things I want to shift, some things I want to change. Great. Even the fact that you're acknowledging that and wanting to change shows that you're worth something, shows that you're a beautiful, evolved human. And so start small, but know that there's a lot in there. There's a lot to love. And if you can't find it, keep looking. Keep looking, because there's stuff in there. And I'll say, I've struggled with it at times too, but I'll tell you right now, I love the hell out of myself. I really do. And hey, I know my weaknesses better than anybody. And I could pontificate on them all night long. But man, do I know my strengths, and do I know the beautiful things that I think and the beautiful things that I say and the feelings that I have, the things I do. I know those more intimately than anyone. And so, yeah, I love myself. I big love myself. And you should get to that point as well. Okay, I'm going to read one more quote that I read this in a book the other day and really haven't been able to stop thinking about it. It's one that I'm probably going to have to read 2 or 3 times, because it's not like it has these really big words, but it's kind of hard to understand. But I was reading The Pale King, which is possibly my favorite novel of all time, definitely top 3. But the author wrote The Pale King and died before he finished it, so it's technically an unfinished novel, but it's pretty darn finished. It's like 600 pages, but they came out with a version that had like a few parts that weren't in the original novel, that they just kind of, here's some extra scenes that didn't make the final cut. And maybe, had the author lived, maybe he would have included them, maybe not, but they're great pieces of writing that can stand alone, And so I realized that copy was available, and I ordered that book, and I went back and reread some parts that I love, and then, went back and read these additional scenes. And so this quote is from one of those scenes. And the author is David Foster Wallace, who I mention all the time because he's my goat. And I've read every single book he's ever wrote. Like I said, a little complex. He says, "We starve at the banquet. We cannot see that there is a banquet, because seeing the banquet requires that we see also ourselves sitting there starving. Seeing ourselves clearly, even for a moment, is shattering." And I think this can be taken a lot of ways, right? I view it as life is this banquet, right? Life gives us so much all the time. We're sitting at the banquet, and there is endless amounts of food. There is ceremony. There are decorations. There's beauty all around us. There's food. There's libations. There's everything. Life is a banquet, right? But it says we starve at the banquet. We cannot see that there's a banquet, because seeing the banquet requires that we see also ourselves sitting there starving, i.e., not partaking of the banquet, right? And it says seeing ourselves clearly, even for a moment, is shattering. And so, and maybe I don't even know what this means. Maybe it's over my head. But to me, the idea of being here on earth in front of this banquet and not partaking of it is too shattering to even consider. So I choose to not even view the banquet. I choose to not see the banquet right in front of me because the thought of me starving at the banquet is too painful. It's too real. It's too shattering. I'm going to read it one more time. We starve at the banquet. We cannot see that there is a banquet because seeing the banquet requires that we see also ourselves sitting there starving. Seeing ourselves clearly, even for a moment, is shattering. It's true. And I think it's worth shattering ourselves sometimes to look inward enough to realize, hey, we're here at a banquet, man. We can partake, we can eat, we can live, we can feel love. So it's just a great reminder, hey, we're at a banquet, man. We are at a banquet. Anyways, I freaking love you guys. People ask me all the time, like, how much I enjoy podcasting and the social media stuff. And I'm like, dude, I freaking love it. This is my life calling. I'm doing it. And it feels really amazing. And it's weird because it feels like I'm living out my childhood dream, but this dream wasn't possible when I was a child. Social media didn't exist. Podcast didn't exist. So, but it feels like I'm living out my dream. And I couldn't be happier. And one more thing I wanted to share. I had a fan send me these the other day. These shoes, custom made of stone and clay. Look at these. These are amazing. And then the other side, it says, has a scripture here. It says, we are the clay, you are our potter. We are all the work of your hand. So cool because I didn't even think about this scripture when I made the name of Stone and Clay. You yourselves, like living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house. 1 Peter 2:5. Like, so cool. I'm so grateful that someone would even think of me to do something like this. I mean, you know what I mean? These are big shoes. I got clown feet. Anyways, I love you guys. Subscribe. You know what to do. I'm not going to tell you what to do. We'll see you later.